So a couple of weeks out from your next fight, Tyrell Fortune, how are things and how has camp been in the last few weeks?
Yeah, it's been good, man. Really good. Just mostly focusing on me and getting myself in the best shape I can to get ready for this fight, and that's about it. Really, doing everything: wrestling, jiu-jitsu, sparring, boxing, kickboxing. So I'm getting everything mixed up in there and just getting in the best shape I can.
Yeah, of course. And after a couple of maybe setbacks, a couple of maybe disappointments in early 2020, you rebounded with a big win over Syed Somar. Can I ask how vindicating was getting that win at the end of 2020 for you?
Really, none at all.
Or was it not? Okay.
For me, when I look back at that fight, to me, I register that as another bad performance. I was going through just other things as far as like mentally in my mental space, and the only part that I can take good from that fight was the first round, because I had to push myself through the first round because I knew my body wasn't going to sustain the energy levels that I needed, because I was already exhausted from just mental performance anxiety that I had been going through from the night before and during the day of the fight, that I was exhausted before the fight even started. So the first round for me I knew it had to be good, because I knew by the second and third, I wouldn't have the energy or the output I was going to need. So I just made sure that the first round I won the first round.
Yeah.
That was important to me in that fight. But other than that, man, I think I just was trying to survive. Honestly, I mean, I think everybody else has a different, opinion of the fight from their own perspective of watching it. But I can tell you, for me personally, it really, even that being a win, I feel like it just motivated me just to get back to where I was previously with my training and just more focused on myself. I think I got a little distracted and was more focused about like how I'm going to beat my opponents and how I'm going to, what mistakes they make, instead of just really honing in on myself and making myself a complete fighter. I feel like even now, with only, I've been in the game for 4 years, but really only 3, because I had a elbow surgery twice, the bicep surgery that took me out for a whole year. So I still there's still so much of my game that I haven't discovered yet. And so I feel like I feel just in such a better place mentally and physically, because now I'm just back to just developing myself as a fighter. Who cares I don't really care who I'm fighting or what they do, what part their expertise is in. I just want to make myself a complete fighter now.
Yeah. And some of the things that you're talking about from that last fight, I don't want to pry into personal circumstance, but was it perhaps a weight off your mind getting that victory and getting, the W on that
yes
night?
And that victory, if more of anything, it helped me be able to put that year aside, because it was able to end it with a win. Had I lost that fight, I don't know where I would be mentally, because it was just like a year. It had been 2 losses and then a no contest. So it was just like, man, a year of bad performance, So that win definitely helped me get more motivated and put my mind in a better space for my next fight. Because my mind was just, before that fight, was just in such a negative space, because I had a no contest from a knee in the first round. And then I got knocked out previously before that fight. And that fight was like the first real test for me, that Bellator was like, okay, we're going to give you a guy who's more dangerous, who's fought athletic guys like you before, who's been in the UFC. So he's not going to be afraid of anything. He's just going to go fight. And so I had all that playing in my head right before the fight. And I think I just mentally exerted myself too much, just thinking about me wanting to win instead of just letting it happen. And so I just feel like that win definitely helped me get over that mental spot.
100%. And let's move a little bit to the upcoming fight. So in April on Bellator 255, you will face Matt Mitrione. At this point in his career, how do you view Mitrione as an upcoming opponent?
Man, what this sport has taught me, and what I learned even from that last loss, that you can't really discount anyone. Tim Johnson, before I fought him, was on a 3-fight losing streak, and now his next fight will be for the heavyweight championship. So you're your status in this game can change like that.
Yes.
So you can't really discredit. Matt's been in the UFC. He's fought high level guys before, champions before. So I'm not going to discredit him in any way. Plus, I've trained him. I know Matt. We're friends. We're cool. So I know he's going to be a tough guy. I know he's going to be ready to fight. I just think I'm better than he is, especially when it comes to even the stand up and the quickness that he does have. I think I'm faster, and then I'm a better wrestler than he is. He just had no wrestling. So,
yeah. What is that feeling like going in, having trained with an upcoming opponent? Does that play on your mind at all?
It makes you more comfortable to know that I kind of know what to expect,
yeah.
and know where his weaknesses are, his holes at, being that I was his wrestling coach. So that gives me a little bit more of comfort, but then it also lets me know, like, he knows I know these things. So he's also going to be trying to utilize that information against me with trying to catch me as I come in and things like that. So it's just, it's another part of that game where it's like, don't try to worry too much about it and just let it go how it's going to go. But just prepare as best as you can, because once it starts, you can't control how it happens. You can only control what you do to prepare for it.
Is that one of the key things now, is the mental aspect, and trying to maybe not, I don't want to say worry, but maybe not think about things, or, aspects of extra
Yeah,
issues?
I always, before that happened, it wasn't, I guess those situations helped me, but I would say it's more, I've always been kind of the person to be like, try to worry about the things you can't control, and understand the part you play in the decisions you make. And so me being aware of those things really allowed me to help look back at my past decisions and my last fights and really, be able to pick out, okay, these are the things I did wrong. These are the decisions I made that I need to change, and hold myself accountable for that, because that's the next step, is holding myself accountable and then applying those things that I know is more positive for me and the things I need to do in the next forward camps and in the future.
Does there feel any less pressure fighting? Because I know you obviously have fighting without crowd attendance. Does that play a factor at all in terms of nerves or pressure?
No, it really doesn't play a matter to me, because when I'm fighting, I only hear Trevor's voice, my coach's voice. So it doesn't. I'm not really listening or honing in or anything, whether it's 1,000 people or 100,000 or 0. To me, my focus is still on, I got a person in front of me, trying to beat me up, and then the person in the corner that's trying to help me, give me advice. So other than those two things, I'm not focused on anything else.
Yeah. If you win this fight, or as I'm sure you will say, when you win this fight in April, would it be fair to say this is the biggest win of your career, first and foremost?
100%. He'd be the biggest name by that far that I would have beaten. And it would be even bigger had he not lost to the person that I lost to. So I think for me, I don't want to fight Matt, but me fighting Matt, seeing that Tim Johnson beat him after me, I think it just puts me one step closer into getting the fight that I actually want. Tim is the only fight that I actually want. So I've never wanted to fight anybody unless it made sense, and now Tim is just a fight that I want because I need that rematch back. So that's all it is.
Where do you think a win against Matt puts you in the heavyweight rankings, if you like? Where would you, because we're obviously having Bellator rankings brought in imminently, where do you think a win against Matt would put you, in your opinion?
Well, I think I'm already up there in the top 10, somewhere about probably like 9, 8. I think I got to start getting more fights against those upper guys before I can start really putting it. But if it was me, I wouldn't be mad even if I wasn't even in the top 10. If I was even like 12 or something like that. To me, the rankings don't really matter now. If rankings don't really matter now until they get set. Because once they get set, all they do for me now is give me targets.
Yeah.
I know exactly who I want to fight. I know exactly who I'm gunning for. So for me as an athlete, it does nothing but help me better train and focus on what I want to have coming next. And so for me being, I'm still at the beginning of my new contract. So it just lets me know, okay, this is who I want for this fight, and I'm gonna end up here. You know what I mean? So that's all it does for me.
It certainly gives both the fans and obviously you athletes a little bit more clarity as to positioning and who should be next and who could potentially be next with with wins and knockouts and all of that good stuff.
Right, because now you're not just you don't feel like you're just fighting somebody to be fighting somebody. Now I know, okay, this fight here will advance me in this way, or this is just a big money fight, big name fight. You know what I mean? So a lot of fighters now will just, if you have a 1, 2, or 3 by your name, the people are gunning for you. You know what I mean? So I think right there, it just keeps people more in line, more disciplined. You know what I mean? When you're not even the champ, you know, okay, shit, I'm the number 1 contender. I got 10 people behind me that just want to be in my spot, so they can get their shot at the belt. You know what I mean? Because getting the belt in our sport means you get a bigger contract. It means you get more money. So that's I think that's just a bigger thing for fighters, and that's why fighters have always supported the fact of having rankings.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. And let's talk a little bit about, you mentioned then the belt, the heavyweight belt. So obviously the current heavyweight champ, Ryan Bader, is part of the light heavyweight Grand Prix. What do you think should happen with the heavyweight division? Do you think Bader should be stripped and it should be for a vacant title? Do you think there should be an interim title? What do you think should happen with the heavyweight title picture?
Shit, I think he's a champ. I mean, if you want to do an interim thing, then I think maybe that's cool, but then that's kind of, you know, you do that for the promotional side. If it really affects the business, you know, in a sense, to not having an active champ in that weight class because he's in the Grand Prix. But I think it still gives the Grand Prix that bigger name, that bigger pizzazz about it, because we got the heavyweight champ in the lightweight tournament. You know what I mean? So if you kind of take away from that a little bit, if you put an interim title out there because he's doing some now. UFC was doing the interim titles because guys were hurt.
Yeah.
That means that guy's not active. So there is no comparison about this guy. But Ryan Bader is still very active. And I'm sure he would probably want to fight in the tournament more than defend the belt. But either way, I think it would just be kind of corny if they made an interim belt. Now you can have guys still fighting for that number 1 contender spot. So right after the tournament, he has a period of time where he has some downtime, but he should know, hey, you're fighting in 2 weight classes. You have a title that you have to defend, and because you've been fighting at the lightweight division, now you got to go back up and defend this belt or give it up. So I think he should still have that opportunity to still be the champ. You can't just take it away because you asked him to be in a lightweight tournament.
I like that characterization. I think there is too many, maybe not in Bellator, but certainly in the UFC, we seem to have interim champs whenever somebody stubs the toe.
Right. Somebody's out. Well, no, if the champ is out, let him be hurt and just compete for that number 1 spot. Yeah. And all that means now is, hey, you can't fight the champion, but you better hold your ground at the number 1 spot. You know what I mean? Now you're pretty much the acting champ, and you don't need a belt to be that person because you want to still fight that one person in front of you. So I think that just like you're taking away from the guy who earned the belt if you just start making these interim champs just because he got hurt now or he's competing at another weight class. I just don't think that's right. I think that person earned it, and they should at least have the opportunity to defend it. Now, if Ryan Bader gets out the lightweight tournament and he's injured for like a year, okay, give me that belt back, man. You was wrestling in the lightweight tournament, you got injured. Okay, it's been that long. We can't hold up that division that long. But if it's in a sense like where he's not hurt and he's compromised a little bit, give him 3 to 6 months to heal, get back to training, and then you got time to defend your belt. If you can't defend the belt, then it's time to take it away. Making an interim title is just too. I think it's too much.
Yeah, and what we're talking about rankings, we could see. Let's just say Bader gets to the final or even the semi-finals. We would have hopefully a legitimate number 1 contender when he's back, wouldn't we, with these rankings being in place?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I think Tim Johnson will be number 1. But there's so many different guys in our division right now that are up there that have really good records. Yeah. You know, I don't know if Tim Johnson has fought Moldavsky. I don't think he has, but Moldavsky's been on the streak. So Moldavsky's definitely up there. Tim Johnson's up there. Congo's gone. Who else is up there? I think really those two guys are really the only ones competing for that number one spot. Then right behind them is like Linton Vassell and Sergey, because he beat Linton, right? Or no, Linton beat Sergey.
Linton beat Sergey, yeah.
And then Sergey beat Mitrione, so that that's why. And then who else is up after that? Javier Lala.
Yeah, that was the one I was gonna go for. Yeah, next.
I don't really, and then who else? Probably me after. I would assume after that, or you know what I mean. There's not many other guys that have competed at our weight class. Most of them are new. Ronnie Marks is new. He hasn't really competed against any names in the company yet. A lot of the guys are new, so I'm curious to see where I land at in the rankings.
Yeah,
I think this helps me get a better picture.
Yeah, definitely. And you are somebody who's kind of grown up in Bellator, I would say. Obviously, all of your pro fights have been in the promotion. How do you think that has helped to improve your game, being in a major promotion for the entirety of your career?
I think it's helped the way that they've been able to groom and take care of me in a different sense, because smaller companies and organizations wouldn't be able to do the things that they would do me. And it already gives me that, since my first fight was already at this level, I'm comfortable. I know what this level takes, what it brings, everything that they're asking for. Since I've already been here, I've been able to watch and see people ahead of me and talk to people that I know, like Ryan Bader, and asking things and get little insights. So it's kind of like I'm being groomed to be that high level guy, what I mean, by a company, because of them starting me at a young and investing in me young. So I think to me, I think I feel blessed to be able in that position with Bellator. And I mean, I love them as a company. They're some of the greatest people that I interact with on a daily, even outside of business. And when I see them, it's very personal. So, I love that, the fact that I had the opportunity to grow up through Bellator at a professional level.
Yeah, they have been doing a lot of good work, haven't they? Signing fighters very young, maybe even before for the pro debut, like yourself. Obviously, the big example for that would be AJ McKee, wouldn't it? Who's obviously hoping to fight the winner of Pitbull and Sanchez.
Yeah, I think, if I had to compare the companies, I don't know much about the UFC, but I definitely would feel like Bellator is more about the fighter first.
Yes.
It feels like to me that they look out more for the fighter first, and they know that their company is already secure, and they're not trying to be this big mass thing like UFC is. It's more about taking care of the guys that give them the money to even have their show. And I like that about Bellator. So now that we have the rankings, I think even more fans will be more apt to watch Bellator, because they'll understand, okay, this number one guy who they might not or number one guy's fighting the number 4 or 5 guy we don't even know of. Now it makes sense. Now they can kind of start put things together. So I think as Bellator becomes a better organization in those sense for the fans to understand, I don't see why we won't be just as big as the UFC in no time if they continue to market and do those things differently and get more Exposure. We're on Showtime now. That's the biggest thing that has happened.
Yeah, I think as well as Bellator moves, Bellator went through a period, I would say about 4 or 5 years ago, where a lot of the big names were older stars, like the likes of Fedor and other people like that. And
right, Bellator.
What? Sorry.
I said Bellator was known for kind of getting the old guys that were released from the UFC and the guys who were done.
Yeah, and now they're getting the big potential guys such as yourself, such as McKee, such as many others. And what will happen, I think, in a few more years is the prospects will be as fruitful in Bellator as they are in the UFC.
100%. I mean, look at Michael Chandler. He left the Bellator, went to the UFC, and knocked out the number 3 guy. Was it number 2 or 3?
I think Hooker was 4 that night, if memory serves.
Okay, yeah, knocked out the number 4 guy in the world. When guys do that like that, and then before Chandler left, he got knocked out by Pitbull. I mean, we all know how knockouts work. Anybody can be knocked out. You land a perfect shot. They both got knocked out, but all I'm saying is that Bellator's old champ went to the UFC, knocked out the number 4 guy in their organization, and then he was just knocked out previously by the Pitbull brother that's in a weight class smaller than him. So you can't say that Bellator's separation from the UFC and its talent is very big anymore. when we have shows like that and things like that happen.
Yeah, it's probably more, being honest, it's probably the UFC probably has a bigger roster. That's probably the main difference, isn't it? I think
I think they have more money. They have more money. So they're going to have they can afford to have a bigger roster. They can afford to go to Dubai and fly all their fighters out. You know what I mean? The UFC is operating on a bigger scale than what I think Bellator has invested in the company as whole. So that's why they have their own PI center where they're putting fights on every week because they already got their whole own company, their own building. Everything is already set. We are still working out of the Mohegan Sun, you know what I mean, in Connecticut. So it's just, I think when Bellator it gets it to the point where they can invest like that and have their own Bellator PI, and we got our own cage and set up stuff like that, own arena, then now we're competing with the UFC. Now we're able to do that because now we can pump shows out like boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably the next step what Bellator is probably looking at investing at. If I wouldn't be surprised if we seen something like that in the next few years.
I think as well, another thing, just to touch on this again, is Bellator is sometimes, and the UFC do it, I think all promotions do it, but Bellator has been criticised of easy matchmaking with some of the big stars. But we've seen with this roster of fights that have come out, there's a lot of good fights. The one that comes to mind for me is, because I'm obviously in the UK, is James Gallagher. James Gallagher over here has been someone who has looked at as kind of being protected by Bellator after the Bandejas lost, and now he's fighting Patchy Mix, which is a fantastic fight.
Yes, I think to a certain point, you know what I mean? And Bellator does a good job of it. James Gallagher is young.
Yes.
Everybody looks at him like, oh, he's this amazing fighter. James Gallagher is still a little boy.
Yeah.
He's like 23 years old. Men don't fully develop till we like 28. So you got this, you're saying this little boy's a star, but he's still a young man, still maturing in just his natural own body. So give him time. Like Bellator does a great job of grooming their athletes for a reason. And I think that's one thing that if you look at Bellator, they've done that better than the UFC of taking young talent from nowhere, nobodies that no one knew, and grooming them into something. Look at AJ McKee, look at Michael Chandler, look at these guys that they've built through their organization who have started their fights in the Bellator and then went on and left or still in Bellator, still doing good. So I think they do a great job of grooming and making talent. It's just now it's like once you get like bigger like Michael Chandler thing, I think it's more of like marketing and promoting that talent to make that person get as much exposure and then as many sponsors and as looks, because that once you get that big, now your name is a brand. You know what I mean? And I think that's all it becomes to. You want to be under the biggest brand to make your brand as big as you possibly can.
Yeah, 100%.
Michael Jordan wouldn't be Michael Jordan if he wasn't playing in the NBA.
Yeah, cool. I'll have to just be polite about that reference. I'm not particularly clued up on basketball.
Oh, okay. Well,
I'm only kidding.
Right. Okay. I'm just saying, any major, you want to be in the best league that everyone knows about, and I think that's all it was.
I've watched The Last Dance, so we'll leave it there.
Okay.
Final question, Tyrell, because I do know that you are busy. Give me a prediction for your fight on the 2nd of April. What goes down?
If I had to predict, I would say his game plan is to keep me on the outside. I'm definitely going to try to crash on the inside. And I predict a finish probably within the first. I'm going to go back to even how I game my old. I'm not going to rush for a finish. If it happens, it happens. But my only prediction is to put him in uncomfortable positions to make mistakes. I know where his weaknesses are, like the ground, getting them down, taking them down, or inside. So I'm just going to force those positions and hopefully and most likely get a finish.
Yeah. Well, I very much look forward to your next fight, and I very much look forward to the card overall.
Thank you.
Before we finish, Tyrell, how can people find you on social media?
My name on Instagram is Fortune Over Fame. Is Fortune _over_fame. Twitter is Fortune Over Fame with no E. And that's about it, man. Instagram is probably the best. I'm really not on social media. I'm not too much of a social like that, but you can follow.
Superb. And before we finish, is there anything you would like to say or sign off with at all?
No, man. Thanks for having me. Thanks for the interview. Appreciate it. And that's about it, man.
I appreciate your time too, Tyrell. Thanks for your time today. It was great to talk.
Yes, thank you.